इस माया रूपी देह का अहंकार मत करो। अपने आत्मन को पुकारो। Realize your true self. Shed this false clothing, as it were, of your Maya Rupi Deha. माया का अहंकार मत करो, देह का घमंड मत करो. Okay, we are starting last lap. Tattvamasi, that thou art. So, having talked about the illusions and having talked about the supreme reality beyond the illusion, a seeker is ready to proclaim Aham Brahmasmi. This, the teacher, the guru, directs the student, Tattvamasi, that thou art. And a student who is evolved is ready to proclaim, yes, I understand. Not only I understand, but I realize Aham Brahmasmi. These are all um, related statements. All these um, aphorisms that we use are coming from the Upanishads, and each of them is from distinct Upanishads. There are four particular Mahavakyas. As such, there are many Mahavakyas. In fact, even our national emblem, Satyameva Jayate, is from the Upanishads. It's a Mahavakya of sorts, right? It's not considered a Mahavakya in this sense, but it's a great aphorism from the Upanishads. Satyameva Jayate, Satyena Pantha. It's, I believe, from the Mundaka Upanishad, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. So similarly, there are four aphorisms which roar this truth to help you, to suggest to you, and which you yourself proclaim upon that enlightenment, that you are the self, not this Maya Rupi body, mind, and intellect. Before we start, are there any questions? Yes, Ankit.
So I was just reading through the text, and something I read in the concept of the Trinity or something.
Hmm.
The idea of the illusions, we speak about them, and the example of the snake and the rope.
Yeah.
So the snake is a projection. Ultimately, is a rope also a projection? Like, are we, I mean, does a rope exist?
See, again, are you talking from the perspective of um, an absolute sense, um, or for the purpose of the analogy? Let's not take the analogy beyond its, its relevance, right? I see what you're getting at. For whom is the question? For whom is the rope? For whom does the rope exist?
Huh.
Now, the idea of the rope was only introduced to bring about this analogy of a superimposition, to bring about this analogy of intrinsic illusion, right? And an extrinsic illusion, only to explain the concept, right? In absolute terms, you and I have discussed that Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, right? Anything in this world, whether it's a rope, a snake, a donkey, a horse, it's all an illusion, right? So, in the absolute sense, of course, the rope also doesn't exist. But we bring about the analogy of a rope and snake only to explain that particular concept. But is that what your question is? Is that what you're hinting at, or?
Yeah, because like the example of the desert. where the mirage is like, perishable and the desert is imperishable.
Mm.
And then there's something beyond the desert as well, all pervading the rest of the desert is Brahman. So that is what I was getting at, that, we imagine the sense objects of the world to be the rope, and the rope itself is sort of also representative of the world. And then,
Okay, don't mix analogies. Okay,
okay,
don't mix analogies. Understand the rope and the snake purely for the purpose of um, see the idea of a superimposition upon something that is actually there, right?
okay,
In relative terms, suppose you are in the waking state. In the waking state, this waking world is real for the waker. And in this waking state, in a dark room in your house, you stumble upon a rope. The rope is actually there in the waking state, right?
yeah,
So we are just trying to communicate that even in this waking phenomenon, you are projecting things in an illusory fashion because of ignorance, right?
okay,
So in the waking state, the rope is there. You stumble upon it, and you imagine, oh God, what was it? It's dark, right? So in that perspective, yes, for the waker, the rope is real. It's imperishable. The snake is unreal. It is perishable. It perishes with your realization. In that sense, the concept of Trinity again is a parallel idea, okay, which is not necessarily related to or limited to the rope and the snake analogy. The rope and the snake analogy is only to introduce the concept of a superimposition. Having talked about the illusions as an entire concept, he and then introduces the idea of what is God beyond the illusions. He gives the idea of a trinity. Let's go back for a second. Okay? Let's go back for a second. Why is he talking about the Trinity? He's trying to convey to us what is God. The whole concept of Trinity comes from the perspective of trying to communicate. He says, when you try to communicate something subtle, it's very difficult, right? Conveying emotions is difficult. Conveying a subtle intellectual concept is difficult. Conveying mathematical formulas are difficult. Conveying ideas in the sciences is difficult. So naturally, conveying such a subtle spiritual concept is extremely difficult, right? Words don't cut it. Yet, the sages have come up with an ingenious analogy, come up with an ingenious symbolism to convey this idea. And how have they conveyed it? From what you know, from the known to the unknown, right? So what you see right now around you, a lay person, an ignorant person who has no idea of what God is, they say, what is God? Now I can talk about infinite bliss and infinite love and infinite this and infinite that. It makes little sense to the person. What is that? Right? So let's talk in terms of what they know, right? The first concept is introduced is this world is God. That's the first concept. So when you say that, an ignorant person thinks, "Oh, this world is God. That means there's God in this bed. There's God in these walls. There's God in the trees." The concept of Narsimha comes out of the pillar. Growing up, we must have been told there's God in this tree, right? So what is the first pagan idea? The first pagan idea of sorts, right? Nature worshipping peoples is to worship create deities out of things, right?
okay,
It's not a wrong thing. It's just the first level of worship. Shara. Even in these perishable, the so-called seeming perishable entities, you recognize the divine, right? But simply limiting yourself to an understanding that, oh, that this perishable entity is the God is a misunderstanding. No, this perishable entity will come and go. But what underlies this, what supports it, इसका जो आधार है, right? Just as snake का आधार rope है, movie का आधार screen है, is these words का आधार is the page behind it. What is supporting it? It has nothing to do with what is written on it, right? That Adhar is God, Akshara. That Adhar is imperishable. The rope the snake will come and go depending on your awareness. The rope is imperishable, the snake is perishable. Akshara, right? So we have graduated from an understanding that God is Kshara to God is Akshara, right? So far, so good. We're done, we think. But in all this discussion, we have limited the concept of God. We have limited the concept of God to this world.
Hmm.
We have limited the concept of God to, uh, either it is the Kshara world or the Akshara supporting the world. We
Yeah.
don't have a concept of God beyond this world. We don't have a concept of God independent of this world, right? Our concept of God is actually a product of sort of our experience of this world. When we say Akshara, so that's when the scriptures say no, 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 no. It's not Akshara. It's even beyond Akshara. It's Uttama Purusha. It has nothing to do with the world. It is beyond the limitations and the restrictions you place upon it by, and the way in which that is expressed is, say for example, the idea of the desert. What's the desert?
You got cut off for a minute there.
Okay.
Beyond the.
So beyond the perishable and the imperishable, the Uttama Purusha, and the way in which he explains Uttama Purusha is like the desert, right? What is the desert? In trying to convey what the desert is, you first look at the mirage, which the person imagines. Well, actually, the mirage is not there. Desert is actually the sand supporting the mirage, right? But then you think of, oh, desert is only that bit of sand, that limited, restricted amount of sand that is just supporting the desert. No, no, no. The desert is vast. The desert is inconceivable. The desert extends in all directions beyond your conception. The mirage is merely an ansh of sorts, the superimposition upon a speck of desert. So the mirage, the illusory mirage, is a superimposition upon a speck of desert. This world, this entire Brahman, this entire universe that you perceive and conceive is a superimposition upon a speck of Brahman, the reality, God. God extends far beyond.
Beyond even the multiverse, if you know the
Universe, multiverse,
yeah.
universe is merely a superimposition upon a speck of Brahman, Uttama Purusha.
Yeah, so I was having.
So when you talk about, whether you talk about multiverses, whether you talk about the extension of time beyond an infinite scale, when you talk about space in that sort of infinite expanse, in all ways the Brahman defies and extends beyond uh, the very capacity of your intellect to conceive. What could it be? So if you are under the misunderstanding, oh yes, I've got it, Kshara, Akshara, I've got it. Uttama Purusha. Uh, it's Uttama Purusha. That's the concept. Now, if you say, yes, now I've understood Uttama Purusha also. Yadi manyase suvedeti nona vedeti vedacha. If you think you've understood it, you've understood nothing. It's not a concept to, it's only an indication, an inspiration that the sages are trying to give us. Right. So keep an analogy where it is, relevant, right?
Yeah, I was just having issues with the understanding of Uttam Purusha, like distinguishing between but what you've said has helped, Akshara and Uttam Purusha. Yeah, I was struggling. I am still struggling to like see the difference, but yeah.
So the distinction between Uttama Purusha, the distinction between Akshara and Uttama Purusha is the distinction between the desert supporting the mirage and the total desert.
No, I understood it. I just can't like.
The distinction between Akshara and Uttama Purusha is the distinction between electricity in the bulb and electricity in the entire circuit. Actually, there's no distinction. It's indivisible. You can't divide it. The only reason for the concept of Uttama Purusha is to challenge your own buddhi, that you are the one limiting electricity to just that bit of electricity crossing through the bulb. You are the one limiting desert to just that bit of sand supporting the mirage. You are the one limiting God to just the supporter of the world. Arey Baba, the world is just a speck. This bulb is just one single instrument in the total electricity. Think of the total electricity of the world. How many gigawatts, megawatts, terawatts? I don't even know what terms. What is this bulb? Nothing. This bulb is nothing.
It means that God is beyond our understanding. That's the only thing. It is. That's the
It's
only way to
beyond. It's
our
beyond
understanding.
It's beyond with a big B. Huh?
Beyond.
See, like in South India, they emphasize, the way in which they pronounce some words. Everything. So I don't know if you have to find a way of saying beyond, totally beyond.
Yes, beyond. That's the only way to understand God.
This world is just it's a small advertisement in the ad show. Those 2-second ads which you skip through, God is just going to skip through our ads. This entire phenomenon of our world, all your drama in your life, and not only your life, thousands of years. It's just a small advertisement.
Not very comforting to know that.
If you have a lot of self-importance, it's not very comforting. Huh?
No, but I mean, from the whole world's point of view.
That's what I'm saying. If you think, oh my God, world is so important. If you have a lot of importance for this world, it's very discomforting. I totally agree with you. At the same time, it's very liberating. All the world's stage. It's just a drama going on. Let's have some fun. See, a thought like this challenges your conception of the world. It challenges the kind of seriousness. Why are the greatest of sages? They're so light-hearted. Can't take anything seriously because it's not meant to be taken seriously. Will you get offended about what someone said on the screen? Drama, right? So if you wrap this idea around your head, you won't hold on to anything. Yes, you might be momentarily disturbed by things, but within a couple of minutes, I'm only speaking from experience, right? It's not that things don't affect a person, right? But your time to recoil, your time to come back to, a proper orientation, sometimes it's almost instantaneous. You're like, "Arey, what was I getting?" It's almost like within a couple of seconds. And why am I getting upset? What am I getting bothered by? It is what it is. Leela, drama.
Sir, we are in the drama. We don't want to come out of the stage.
That's your problem. Huh? Which is why I don't. Which is why a teacher doesn't take a student's problems also seriously. But honestly, not to belittle your problems, not to belittle my problems, but a true sage. Huh? See, I told you yesterday. This is the privilege of studying and being around a guru, right? In such close proximity. Person has come with a problem pleading to Swamiji. They'll go laughing. not to belittle their problems, not to belittle their problems. See, either they've understood what he's trying to say, and or at least they've had a lighthearted moment, one way or the other. But as a third person observing it, you could see the 100% objectivity, not only to others' problems, to their own problems. Hmm? There was one or two incidents where Swamiji's own health is concerned. I think now they've taken some, care for certain heart-related issues. There was like a little bit of a hole, and he had other issues since childhood apparently. Like, his heart used to suddenly pace up. It used to start beating at a very, I don't know what the medical term for it is. He actually narrated to us the first time it was happening to him. And he looked into the mirror and he said, okay, this might be it. You have to be in the situation to see how you'll react. But how do you see your own life, your own issues, your own situations? So as I was saying, yes, of course, there's a momentary affectation perhaps, but the way in which you recoil, the way in which you come back to your state of awareness, once you internalize these ideas, it becomes easier and easier to do that, right? And if you're unfamiliar with this, if you have never thought about it, of course, this concept is very disturbing. It's very disturbing. I'm glad you thought that. I'm glad you echoed that feeling, because it is very disturbing. If it's not disturbing to you, either you're enlightened or you're sleeping. Either you're enlightened or you're sleeping through whatever I'm saying. Another morning, Vedanta treatise. I like Utsavji's voice. Very soothing. Listen to what I'm saying. It should terrify you. It should terrify you. In a good way. We're here. See, sometimes it's good to watch a horror movie with people. No, it becomes fun. I'm showing you a little bit of a horror, but we are all with each other. Don't worry.
ना आसान नहीं है उत्सव जी। कबीर ने कहा है कि ये गूंगे का गुड़ है, स्पिरिचुअलिटी से गूंगे का गुड़, उसको अनुभव करना है।
Absolutely, 100%.
हाँ।
अब मैं ये तो कह रहा हूँ ना कि इसे कन्वे करना, इसे बताना, इसे समझाना इतनी मुश्किल बात है।
शब्दों में कुछ भी बयान नहीं हो सकता, हो ही नहीं सकता।
बेकार का मैं उठा सुबह सुबह ये सब बता रहा हूँ आपको। हाँ, चले जाता मैं कहीं और, आप भी चले जाते। छोड़ो ये सब बेकार की बातें। चलो अनुभव करते हैं, पार्क में जाकर के अनुभव करते, थोड़ा कसरत करते हैं।
That's a good one.
डाउट अबाउट इट, अनुभव से ही होता है। बट इसकी आप जितनी चर्चा करोगे, इसके बारे में आप जितना सोचोगे, योर थॉट टेक्स यू टू योर एक्सपीरियंस। प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड दैट रेपिटेशन ऑफ थॉट इज व्हाट क्रिएट्स एक्सपीरियंस। जो आप अनुभव कर रहे हो, आप वो अनुभव कर पा रहे हो बिकॉज आपने उसके बारे में बहुत सोचा है कि आप ये करना चाहते हो, ये करना चाहते हो, करना चाहते हो। हाँ, आप हॉलीडे पे कब जाते हो? बिकॉज आपने 5 साल सोचा है, मुझे यहाँ जाना है, मुझे यहाँ जाना है, मुझे यहाँ जाना है, मुझे यहाँ जाना है। जैसे ही मौका मिला चले गए आप। सो थॉट रेपिटेशन इज द प्रीकर्सर टू एक्सपीरियंस।
करत करत अभ्यास के जड़ मत हो तो सुजान। अभ्यास करते रहो तो कुछ ना कुछ तो होगा ही होगा, इसी जन्म में हो जाएगा।
एब्सोल्युटली। आप कह रहे तो हो ही जाएगा। आई नो, बट सीरियसली
ऑल आवर एजुकेशन इज फ्रॉम नोन टू अननोन। जो नोन है उसकी प्रॉपर्टी हमारे को पूरी मालूम है, और अननोन जो है स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज कंप्लीटली दैट। उदाहरण उदाहरण उदाहरण, एग्जाम्पल एग्जाम्पल, सिमिली सिमिली सिमिली। तो उसके बारे में बताने के लिए, ऑल्दो इट इज नॉट वेरी नियर टू दैट, बट इट इज एटलीस्ट ए इंडिकेटर।
सो उपनिषद में क्या कहते हैं ना, उपनिषद सी यूजुअली जब आप कोई टेक्स्ट पढ़ते हो, इट गोज फ्रॉम सिंपल टू कॉम्प्लेक्स।
या
जैसे आपने वेदांता ट्रीटिस भी पढ़ा, हमें ये कॉन्सेप्ट्स कब आई? सेक्शन 3 लास्ट फ्यू चैप्टर्स में इल्यूजन्स के बारे में हम पढ़ रहे हैं, कॉजेशन के बारे में हम पढ़ रहे हैं। पहले फ्यू चैप्टर्स हम क्या पढ़ रहे थे? बॉडी, माइंड, इंटेलेक्ट, सत्व, रजस, तमस, renunciation. It graduated to more and more deeper topics. Then it went to karma, then it went to illusion, then it went to perception, then it went to illusion. So it's gone from simple to complex. Upanishads में उल्टा है. It goes from complex to simple. It goes from complex to simple. Why? Because the Upanishads are conscious of people's time. अगर आपको समझ में आ गया तो आप क्यों बैठे हुए हो?
बिल्कुल।
तो पहले मुद्दे की बात करते हैं, पहले कॉम्प्लेक्स बात करते हैं। जिसे समझ में आ गया उठ के चले जाओ भाई, जाओ।
That is why God said everything in the second chapter.
एंड एग्जैक्टली, प्रिसाइसली, जिसको समझ में आ गया तो चलो। गीता उपनिषद में अब अगर समझ में नहीं आया, थोड़ा हम इलेबोरेट करते हैं, उदाहरण देते हैं, थोड़ा हम समझाते हैं, पहले समझाते हैं उसे। अच्छा, जो समझने से समझ गया तो चलो उठो, फिर उदाहरण देते हैं, उदाहरण से समझ गया चलो, उदाहरण भी नहीं समझे फिर स्टोरी बनाते हैं, कथा बनाते हैं, रामायण लिखते हैं, महाभारत लिखते हैं, उसी चीज़ को कन्वे करने के लिए। तो द स्क्रिप्चर्स फ्लो इन द ऑपोजिट डायरेक्शन। अब जो एक शब्द से समझ गया, तो चर्चा करते रहो, बात करते रहो। हर किसी का लेवल होता है, हम सबका एक लेवल है। जितना हम चर्चा करेंगे, some of you are understanding 10%, 20%, some of you are understanding 50%. As we discuss, as we engage, something will strike. Something will strike.
तो
So,
आप बोल रहे हैं, वो उर्दू में बोलते हैं एक नुक्ते च गल मुकदी है।
hmm,
एक नुक्ते में ही बात खत्म हो जाती है।
correct.
और उर्दू के वर्ड ऐसे ही हैं कि ऊपर नुक्ता डाले तो कुछ मीनिंग होता है, नीचे डाले तो कुछ और मीनिंग होता है। तो ये
इशारे से समझ आ जाता है, इशारे से ही समझ आ जाता है,
Yeah.
राइट? सो अब मैं क्या मतलब, आई कैन ओनली से फ्रॉम एक्सपीरियंस दैट, से फॉर एग्जांपल, दिस इज द I was just reflecting upon it, that this is the third time I'm starting the Bhagavad Gita yesterday, and the ease with which it, someone was asking me, how was your first class? I was like, thoda nervous tha, but it flowed, right? तो ये समय से भी होता है, ये अभ्यास से भी होता है, ये एक एवरी टाइम यू रीड एंड स्टडी समथिंग, अ न्यू फैसेट इज अनलॉक्ड, एंड ये आपको समझ में भी नहीं आएगा, इट सडनली ओपन्स अप फ्रॉम विद इन यू। सो इसलिए मतलब बात, हम बातें करते रह जाएंगे, ये अनुभव करना पड़ता है, नो डाउट अबाउट इट। आपने जो कहा एकदम सही बात है, बट बातों बातों से ही, सोच विचार से ही अनुभव होता है, राइट? दैट्स ऑल्सो अनडिनाइबल। सो चर्चा करते रहें, सुबह सुबह उठ करके बातें करते रहें इसके बारे में। किसी ना किसी दिन समवंस, किसी का तो नंबर आएगा। इतना लॉटरी खेल रहे, किसी का तो नंबर आएगा ना जी। हाँ।
एनलाइटनमेंट
लॉ ऑफ एवरेजेस। हाँ, लॉ।
एनलाइटनमेंट तो ऑल ऑफ ए सडन होती है।
हाँ जी,
हाँ है, एनलाइटनमेंट ऑल ऑफ ए सडन होती है। ये नहीं है कि भाई ग्रेजुअल नहीं है।
सर, द चेंज इज ग्रेजुअल बट इनविजिबल। The visible change is instantaneous. The visible change is instantaneous.
कभी
You'll
बोलते हैं लगा रहो किनारे पर, कभी तो लहर आएगी।
Sorry?
लगा रहो किनारे पर, कभी तो लहर आएगी।
Correct.
मतलब कि इतनी अंदर से इतनी शिद्दत होनी चाहिए, जबरदस्ती, कि भाई मेरे को जानना ही जानना है, जानना ही जानना है, जिसको वो मोक्ष बोलते हैं।
Exactly. मुमुक्षत्व। मुमुक्षत्व। तो इसी में लगे हुए हैं सर, कि इतनी बातें बातें कर करके या तो फोमो हो जाए या मुमुक्षत्व पैदा हो जाए। हाँ, कुछ तो हो। तो इसी पे लगे हुए हैं। ओके, विद दैट थॉट लेट्स स्टार्ट द final chapter of the Vedanta treatise.
Vedanta. Chapter 21, that thou art, the four aphorisms. The Vedas have been distinguished as the foremost spiritual texts from time immemorial. They contain the perennial philosophy of Vedanta, which has been indoctrinated in ancient India through four aphorisms known as Mahavakyas. Mahavakyas literally means great statements, supreme declarations. They appear one in each of the four Vedas as follows. Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. Tat Tvamasi, that thou art. Ayam Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. The first aphorism, Prajnanam Brahma, Brahman is consciousness, appears in Aitreya Upanishad in the Rig Veda. This aphorism makes a general declaration that Brahman, the supreme reality, is consciousness. The one homogeneous consciousness that pervades everywhere, that which functions in the macrocosm and the microcosm, the common substratum of the world and the individual. If the consciousness pervading the world is likened to total space, then the consciousness in an individual would be space in a pot. But the space in a pot cannot be segregated from total space. The material of the pot cannot divide space. Space may be referred to as pot space, room space, open space, etc. All these spaces are one and the same. Space as such is homogeneous, indivisible, called differently for convenient reference. Likewise, consciousness is referred to differently depending on its heterogeneous embodiments. Though it remains ever homogeneous, the first aphorism pronounces its homogeneity. It is known as Lakshana Vakya, which means statement of definition.
So the first Mahavakya is Prajnanam Brahma. It appears in the Aitareya Upanishad in the Rig Veda. And this makes a definition, the statement of definition. It defines that Brahman, the reality, is the all-pervading consciousness. This consciousness, Prajna, Prajnanam Brahma. It defines Brahman is consciousness. The all-pervading consciousness underlying, supporting this phenomenal world is Brahman. And this all-pervading consciousness is homogeneous. It is total, it is complete, it is indivisible. It is given different names depending on not anything to do with it itself, depending on things that are constructed on top of it. You construct a house on top of space, and then you create different divisions, and you call it room space, you call it bedroom space, you call it living room space, you call it kitchen space. But that creation, that construction has nothing to do with space. Space is not altered in any way. Space is sukshma, right? So similarly, this Brahman, it is called in different terms. It is called Atman when we refer to the self within. It is called Atman. But as such, Brahman is indivisible. It is called Vishwa, Taijasa. It is called Virat. You've seen perhaps in chapter 8, if you recall, in this book itself. If I can quickly take you there. In chapter 9. Vishwa, Taijasa, Prajna, Virat, Hiranyagarbha, Ishvara, right? We refer to consciousness by these different names, depending on the context in which we refer to it. But as such, these are all the one and the same Brahman. When we talk of Brahman within, it's called Atman. So these are all different names given, but the reality is one and the same. It is the supreme consciousness. That's the statement of definition. Prajnanam Brahma. The second aphorism.
Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art, appears in the Chandogya Upanishad, in the Samaveda. It declares you are pure consciousness. Tat, that, refers to the consciousness, the supreme reality, Brahman. Tvam, thou, to the innermost self, Atman, the core of your personality. Asi, art, establishes the oneness of the all-pervading consciousness and yourself. Brahman and Atman are one and the same. The consciousness is like the ocean, an individual like a wave. The water in the wave and the ocean is the same. Beings would be waves with distinct individuality. The consciousness in every being is the same all-pervading consciousness. Yourself is the infinite reality that thou art. This aphorism is in the form of an advice to a spiritual seeker. Hence it is known as Upadesha Vakya, statement of advice.
So earlier there was a Lakshana Vakya, the statement of definition. This is a Upadesha Vakya. Imagine a teacher, a guru is telling the student, Tattvamasi. That's the context in which this statement is made. It's clarifying. It's a statement of advice, guidance, clarification to the student. And a beautiful comparison is given out here. A beautiful analogy is given out here. Consciousness and an individual are like the ocean and the wave. It's a very famous definition in all the Upanishads as well. In many Upanishads, this idea of a wave comes up, it's literally there. These texts are actually, the Upanishads are actually using sort of nature around to convey many examples. In some places they try to convey the idea of creation through spiders and a spider web. In the Mundaka Upanishad you get to see such analogies as well. So very, very conscious and utilizing the experience of nature around. So this particular analogy of ocean and wave, it's very striking. The ocean is all pervading, like the all pervading consciousness. The ocean has great depth. The ocean has different facets. The ocean has different, almost, inconceivably large, is huge. The wave, first of all, is a small speck in the ocean. There are innumerable waves in the ocean. And every wave has a beginning and an end. A wave rises and it falls. A wave becomes vyakt and avyakt. So in this infinite, constant, unchanging ocean, there are so many changing, perishable waves that are coming and going. And even though there is this distinction between them, there is actually no separation. The wave is the ocean, right? Similarly, you, Tattvamasi, you are the ocean. You are the consciousness. Your body is rising and falling, but the water in the ocean, the water in the wave, only the form is what is being created, and the form is what is being dissolved back into the ocean. But the water in the wave, Tattvamasi, and that water is the same as the water in the ocean. There's no difference. There's no distinction, right? So in that sense, the Upadesha Vakya is giving. The third aphorism.
Statement of advice. The third aphorism, I am Atma Brahma, this self is Brahman, is in Mandukya Upanishad in the Atharvana Veda. I am means this. Atma is your supreme self within. The aphorism states that the Atman self in you is Brahman pervading everywhere. If Brahman is likened to a conflagration, then an individual would be a spark arising from it. Conflagration is fire, so is spark. Both are the element fire. Spark is conflagration. So are you, the Supreme Consciousness. Yourself, Atman, is Brahman. Remember this truth at all times. Repeat it to yourself. Entertain this thought until you realize yourself to be Brahman. Hence, this aphorism is known as Abhyasa Vakya, statement of practice.
The third statement is Abhyasa Vakya. It is a statement of practice. It is a statement which will stick with you throughout your spiritual journey. As you shift your attention from your body, mind, intellect to your Atman, as you shift your focus, as you shift your identification from your ego to your Atman, this is a thing you have to keep repeating to yourself. This body is perishable. This body is not me. I am that Atman. This Atman is Brahman. That's the statement of practice. And this Atman, as we have said, is inseparable from the Brahman. Brahman is indivisible. The distinction between Atman and Brahman is like spark and fire. They're both fire. It's just a matter of scale in which you are thinking, right? So, as you grow spiritually and dissolve your ego, this is something you keep reinforcing upon yourself. I am Atma Brahma, and I am this Atman. I am not this body, not this mind, not this intellect. I am the Atman, and this Atman in me, this light of consciousness in me is Brahman, is the reality, is the truth. If you don't do this practice, it's very easy to misunderstand the Vakyas. It's very easy to jump from the second aphorism to the fourth aphorism. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because, we have some very misunderstandings are very common in this tradition. And even I believe, I still remember a couple of years ago, there was this really weird show called Sacred Games. And in that, for some reason, they showed at the end, I don't know how the plot twists, and it's almost, they think it's very, at least people thought it was very sophisticated, but I thought it was quite silly. But in the end, they have this sort of self-proclaimed God man, and of course they give him a Hindu identity, make him a mala wala, everything and all. And so he's constantly roaring, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi. It sounds silly. Okay. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because if you skip this third aphorism, it's very easy for you to misunderstand that you are Brahman. Means this body is Brahman, this ego is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. It can be a very egoistic statement also. I am God. Main Bhagwan hu. What is the famous line from that show? Anyone remember? कभी कभी अपन को लगता है अपन ही भगवान है. It's extremely arrogant to say that. When you say it from the perspective of the body, this individuality, this ego, right? That's the definition of an asura. What's an asura? Who is an asura? Who is a demon? One who thinks this ego is above God. One who thinks this ego is God. What did Hiranyakshap say to Prahlad? Arey, what is all this Narsimha you keep talking about? Worship me. I'm God. Hiranyakship had banned Vishnu worship throughout his kingdom. People were terrified of worshipping Vishnu. And here in his house was born Prahlad, who under his nose was doing arti to Vishnu. And it was utterly insulting to Hiranyakship. He tried to kill his own son innumerable times because he couldn't stand the apparent indignance of Prahlad. But it's a demonic quality to think of this ego as God. So if you miss this third aphorism, the Atman is Brahman, you will think this body is Brahman. You will think this ego is Brahman. You will think, oh, and people who also don't understand will say, oh, what a blasphemous thing to say. You are Brahman? And not this silly body, not this silly ego. My Atman is Brahman and I am this Atman. So Abhyasa Vakya, very important third aphorism, which you should not forget, right?
The last aphorism, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, appears in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in the Yajurveda. Aham means I, Asmi means am, and Brahman is God. So the aphorism means I am God. It is the ultimate pronouncement of a self-realized person. Prior to self-realization, you use the first person singular pronoun I to mean the waker, dreamer, or deep sleeper. In the three states, your self is conditioned by your gross, subtle, and causal bodies respectively. And the conditioned self expresses as the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeper. The philosophy of Vedanta helps you to get over the conditioning and apply this knowledge in your life. Transcend the limitation imposed by your material bodies. Expose your supreme self. Reveal the nascent I. That pure, unconditioned native I is God. My real self is God. That is the ultimate experience of self-realization. Hence known as Anubhavat Vakya, statement of experience.
बातें चर्चा करते जाएंगे, मिलते जाएंगे तो अनुभव आ जाएगी. Anubhav Vakya, the statement of experience. When you grow to the state of enlightenment, this is something you proclaim to yourself, not to the world. You have nothing to show to the world. Much contrary to roaring it out to the world loudly, you roar it to yourself. Aham Brahmasmi. It's a realization. And what is this Aham? What is this I? Don't allow the conditioning of the I. Right now, take a moment to think about I. Who am I? And no sooner you begin to answer this question, you start thinking of a form. You start imagining your form in your head. What you look like. No, that's not I. That's the body. Then you start thinking about your ideas and your beliefs. You start thinking about your family members. Those are the roles you are playing. You're an actor on stage. That's not you. What's the I? Don't let the I be conditioned at any point. Don't let any kind of qualification come upon the I. Just meditate upon I. What is I? The I is. Right now, in this moment, the I is. And the moment we think of the I, we attach conditionings to it. We attach qualifications to it. But before we do that, there's a momentary second, there's a moment when we can become conscious of that pure I without any conditioning. You have to stretch your intellect to even conceive it, but it's possible. For that moment where you can conceive that unconditioned I, Tattvamasi, that thou art. There's a famous parable. A student went to a sage, asked, where is God? He said, look between two moments, you'll find God. Just after one conditioning dissolves and the next conditioning starts, that one moment, that pure unconditioned moment. It's like asking, where's the screen? Look between two scenes in a movie, you'll see the screen. It happens instantaneously. One scene goes into the other. If you can grasp that one moment to second, you'll be able to see the screen behind this movie. Aham Brahmasmi. I am God. It should be I is God. I is God. And I will not condition this I. So as you grow in your journey, the more qualified you become to meditate upon this. You'll be able to hold this thought. You'll be able to create this separation between the bodies, the shariras, the layerings, the coverings, and that pure nascent I. He calls it the nascent I. मोल करो तलवार का, पड़े रहने दो म्यान. ये सारे म्यान आप छोड़ दो. All of these are myans, all of these are coverings. Leave it. Disregard it. Don't think twice about it. Watch it. Become a sakshi of it. Don't relate to it. This is, it's called sakshi bhav. Watching your own body, your own mind, your own intellect from the balcony of your Atman. Your Atman is the sakshi. Tune into that state, tune into that experience. The moment your mind will want to say something, the moment your intellect will want to say something, take a step back. Watch it. That's Sakshi Bhav. And when you grow in Sakshi Bhav, you'll coalesce, you'll merge with the Atman, that I. That's when you'll be able to say, Aham Brahmasmi. Anubhava Vakya. जितनी भी बात कर लो, it won't be enough. ये अनुभव करना पड़ेगा. So, the Bhagavad Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita expounds the aphorism that thou art. Its 18 chapters can be divided into 3 sets of 6 chapters each. The first set deals with thou, the middle set deals with that, the last set with art. So the profound philosophy of the Gita expounds the aphorism. Such is the power and grandeur of the aphorisms. The aphorisms pronounce that there is but one supreme reality. The reality you are. Realize that. The world is a mere passing phenomenon, a variety show with no pith or substance. Yet you are lost in this empty show. The ignorance of yourself has cast it out. No more of that ignorance. Regain the knowledge of your real self. Establish yourself in your supreme being. Merge with the reality.
No more. खत्म करो ये तमाशा. At some point तो खत्म करना पड़ेगा ना. So here's the Guru telling us, खत्म करो ये तमाशा. बस बहुत हो गया. तुम आ गए हो मेरे पास, अब मेरी बात मानो, खत्म करो ये तमाशा. That's the role of a guru, to shake you up. Okay, enough. Stop it. If you don't stop it, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jataresha. Again birth, again death. Again growth, again disease, again decay, again death. Again funeral, again sadness, again birth, again celebration. We rise with celebrations, we sink with sadness. It's a variety show. It has no pith or substance. Yesterday, someone asked, why should we be in a calm state to discuss this in the class? This is why. When you're jumping with joy, you'll disregard what I'm saying. When you're sunk in sorrow, you'll think I'm so cruel to say any of these things. ठंडे दिमाग से जब आपका मन समभाव में हो, समभाव means in a state of equanimity, in a state of calm. Samatvam yoga uchyate, chapter 2, verse number 50 or 48, 50. Samatvam yoga uchyate. What is yoga? What is the spiritual path? Samatvam, that state of equanimity. And in that state of equanimity, you ought to contemplate upon this. One of the reasons why we study this early in the morning, or as early as possible, because you need a quiet time to even consider these things. Can't have distractions. No sooner this class will end, you'll start with your day. Things will take over your life. Make some time for this thought. We're taking time out consciously in the mornings to discuss this. Throughout the course of your day as well, try to bring this thought in the back burner of your mind. There is but one reality, Tattvamasi, that thou art.
इतना सुकून है ये बात सुन के कि भाई ये 4 गुर दे दिए हमारे को हमारे गुरुओं ने, और अगर इसको ही याद करते रहें, ये तो हमारे रिलीजन में ही है खाली, बाकी तो रिलीजन सोचने तक भी नहीं देते कि भाई हम तत्वमसी, सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता। आपको वहाँ का वहाँ ही ख़त्म कर देंगे अगर आप सोचेंगे, सोचने को भी, सोचना भी अलाउड नहीं है। तो बहुत बहुत हमको तो बहुत उद्गार देना चाहिए हमारे गुरुओं का, और यही मूल मंत्र है हमारी ज़िंदगी का। अगर हम इसको ठान लें तो बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं। बाकी जीना यहाँ, मरना वहाँ तो है ही है। आजकल राज कपूर की पिक्चर चल रही।
So all these Upanishads, so I'll conclude out here. I was silly enough to think that we'll complete this chapter in 2 classes. How silly. Oh my God. I think
For sure you can't.
पूरी जनवरी लग जाएगी. Okay. So the aphorisms, I'm conscious of time. We're over class, but I'll just take another minute of yours. These aphorisms come from the Upanishads. The Upanishads, there are some 210 or something Upanishads, I believe. 212 Upanishads or 240 Upanishads, I'm not sure. At some point, where someone had to come and say, okay, no more Upanishads, please. बहुत हो गया. Everyone is coming with the Upanishad. But there's no central body. There is no central body which decides what is an Upanishad, what is not an Upanishad. Tomorrow, if something starts getting, it's like a crowdsourcing, right? Crowdsourcing होती है ना. So if a large set of people start following and adhering to something for over a period of time, it is time tested, essentially, right? No one is to say this is an Upanishad, this is not an Upanishad. But over a period of time, over eons, over thousands of years, these have been come to accepted as, core texts, right? There was no Upanishad council which was sitting there and saying this is an Upanishad, this is not an Upanishad. But here is also where it gets its sense of authority from. It is time tested by millions and millions of people over thousands of years. Because if a culture has value to retain something, it means it must be of some value. If otherwise it's a passing pleasure, you will enjoy it for a couple of. What was the top Bollywood song in 2016? Who remembers? It's been 8 years. You've forgotten. But there might be those 1 or 2 songs, because a lot of people have found depth in it. It is, it is living through. So that's where these Upanishads get their authority from. Now, from among the Upanishads, there are 10 principal Upanishads, right? And they are principal Again, not because of anything, any council, but because some of the renowned gurus, particularly Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhavacharya, the three sort of towering figures in the various schools of thought in Vedanta, they have written commentaries on it. They have taken the time to actually give their perspective on it, their understanding of it, which is why these are considered, because you have more material to chew upon, you have more material to understand what could be the meaning of these Upanishads. That's why they're considered as principal Upanishads. So I believe each of these four Upanishads, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya, Mandukya, and Brihadaranyaka, they come among the 10 principal Upanishads. You'll be surprised to know I have studied none of them. Teachers come to class unprepared. Now, I have studied none of them because my guru told me I don't need to study it. So he said you may read it if you're interested. You may. So I've read the Mandukya Upanishad. It's a very famous Upanishad, but as a study for a certain course of time, we have only studied 4 particular Upanishads, 3 of which are again among the 10 principal Upanishads, right? So we've studied in the ashram, we studied the Kain Upanishad, we studied the Ishavasya Upanishad. The Mundaka Upanishad doesn't count among the 10. Okay, it doesn't count among the 10, but also it's a very interesting Upanishad. It's a very different theme. It's a very different concept. It's a very long Upanishad compared to, say the Ishavasya Upanishad, and the Kaivalya Upanishad also is among the principal Upanishads. So it's not about the breadth of study, as we keep saying, right? You can sit and study all 200 odd Upanishads, but all collective ideas of Vedantic philosophy are given out in 1 or 2 different Upanishads. That's why Swamiji, through his research and study, had condensed the course that we, of course, went through to the 4 particular Upanishads we study in the course. Idea is, by studying that, you'll be able to relate to everything else, right? That's the idea. So if you're very curious, you can study all of these. I have some sense of surrender to my guru. He's told me I don't need to, so I believe him. It's following his upadesha, his advice. Right? But nonetheless,
पुराने टाइम में जब गुरु होते थे तो वो लिखते थे 108 स्वामी 108 का मीनिंग ही होता था कि 108 उपनिषद पढ़े हैं उन्होंने. कई दफा लिखा होता था कि 108, तो उनका मीनिंग यही होता था कि मैंने पूछा था एक दफा, तो बोले कि उपनिषद पढ़े हुए 108.
तो मैं अपने नाम के सामने 4 लिख दूंगा अभी.
4 वेद पढ़ लिए तो काफी है.
Ved nahi, Upanishad. But anyway, but the point is that these are incredible texts. Look at the quality and the level of the knowledge in them, right? With a single stroke, with a single statement, they have said such deep, hard-hitting statements. So it's a treat. May we get to study Upanishad someday. May I get to share it with you as well. But this is a wealth of knowledge that we ought to be proud of, and more than proud, we ought to consider and actually live by, right? We can all be proud of many things, but it's all hollow if we don't actually follow through and implement some of these ideas in our life. So with that thought, we'll conclude today. Thank you so much for joining. We will see you on Friday, because I do want to progress and proceed. So if you have time on Friday, if someone doesn't have time, let me know on the group. I'm conscious that I would like everyone to participate, but if you are available, we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you so much.
गीता की क्लास कौन से इसी में ही है क्या?
इसमें नहीं है जी, मैंने
Tuesday and Thursday.
नहीं वो तो मालूम है.
मैंने आपको अलग से ग्रुप में ऐड किया है, तो उसी ग्रुप में आप एक और लिंक में भेजूंगा.
अच्छा,
मीटिंग आईडी अलग होती है, बट पासवर्ड सेम ही है. मीटिंग आईडी अलग होती है, तो सिर्फ उस लिंक में क्लिक कर लेना ऑन द व्हाट्सएप.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Can we do the Friday class a little early if possible?
Yeah. Yeah, possible.
Okay, so maybe you can take a poll on it, or you can decide when
What's
you
early?
will
6
take the
a.m.?
class.
How?
ठीक है,
It's 7:30. 7 or something, like the Gita.
7:30.
Okay, chalo.
7:30.
Acha, 7:30.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank